What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench. We are here again with the figures for the D-Day Buddy build. This is episode number 4 and I'm hoping to go ahead and get these figures more or less done today. Now, as you can see, I've done a little bit of work off camera there on the pilot. I painted that yellow vest, but today we got to move on with the rest of it, which is the flesh tones. Now, I went out and I picked up this set here. This is Vallejo. This is a lot of the different flesh tones that they make, and I was actually told to pick up this one particular set by a good friend of mine at work, who is just a boss when it comes to painting figures. He's kind of walked me through the couple of steps that I should take to go ahead and get these guys finished up, and I wanted to go ahead and just pull the trigger, try it out, see what I could do with it. So he told me to go ahead and get this set specifically for this one color. This is a basic skin tone, and this is supposed to be just absolutely beautiful for these types of figures. On top of that, though, I'd had to pick up a few more things, such as this Flesh Wash by Army Builder. This is supposed to be a really nice match, so I'm hoping that that actually pulls through for me. He also told me to pick up one other type of wash, and that is this. This is soft tone. And soft tone is supposed to be put over the entire figure that will help to kind of add some shading and just kind of blend everything together. So that should more or less get me started. But I didn't want to stop there. I went out and I picked up this. This is the Army Painter Quick Shade and Wash Set. As you can see here, it comes with a ton of different washes, a good variety of different washes, and this should really come in handy with any figures I'm ever to paint. Again, this is a bit more towards the fantasy, sci-fi, tabletop gaming modeling world, but that's okay because it comes with colors that I should be able to use, such as this blue wash right here. This is going to be, I think, beautiful going ahead and using on the Luftwaffe uniform. And also the dark tone I can use up here for the guy in the coveralls. I think that's going to be a really nice look for it. So Army Builder, Quick Shade, and Wash Set should be beautiful. But we're going to really kind of stick with these three to start off here. We're going to go ahead and start painting on the faces, and then we're going to wash them and see how that works. So you can see here, this is an awesome set, by the way. I'm really excited. I can actually paint almost any type of figure I want. So that's really, really awesome. But I do have one other figure I kind of want to try out. Anyway, that's another story though. So I think we're going to go ahead and start off here with the gentleman in the coveralls. I've got some tape all set up here. I'm going to go ahead and just stick them down to the tape. We should be ready to go ahead and start painting. Also, speaking of tape, I'm actually using this 3M blue tape. It's really strong stuff. It's a really, really nice tape to have on hand. Much cheaper than using a bunch of Tamiya tape to go ahead and stick everything down. Now I'm going to pull out some of my brushes here. I've got two different size brushes that are probably the smallest brushes I have. So hopefully they will work. Let's go ahead and take some of our basic flesh tone, drop it into our paint cup, and well, we'll just go to town and see what we can do. Alright, so I went ahead and I applied the flesh tone on all of the hands and the faces of all the three figures, and it actually looks interesting, but we're going to have to come back here and apply that flesh wash. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much to put on, but I can already see that it does kind of increase the different shades of the color, which is awesome, and it kind of sits in the recesses and the crevices, giving it some nice shadow, which is also very, very cool. It's precisely what I wanted to do. Now, after applying the basic flesh wash on one figure, you can see the difference between the one washed figure and the one unwashed figure. It's a pretty stark difference, to be honest. So you can see the washed and the unwashed. Also, one thing that we need to go ahead and do is we need to start working with the other washes as well, like the blue tone and the soft tone and all of those. So this is a huge learning curve for me, guys, because I've never really done much with figures, and I've also never really painted much of flesh tones. A few times I've tried it, they never turn out very well, to be honest, and flesh is kind of difficult to do. Now, ideally, I should have done the flesh tone before I painted anything on the rest of the model, but I didn't. So, live and learn. I think that would be a lot easier because I am going to nick the blue and nick the black. I'm not really going to have a very clean line here 100% of the time, but that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and push on and get the rest of the flesh tone applied. And then we'll come back and we'll touch up as necessary. Now, between episodes, I also painted a little bit of yellow here on the pilot's life preserver. This is one of those things where yellow is really hard to paint. Even when I'm airbrushing it, it's just either too thin or too thick, and it's kind of hard to cover over other colors. So that was a little troublesome. But a good rule of thumb here, actually, is my buddy told me to go ahead and paint like a light brown underneath the yellow and then overcoat it with yellow. That's actually supposed to help a lot with the different shades. For future reference, I probably should have done that, but oh well, live and learn. Now here we have our Luftwaffe mechanic here. As you can see, we have the flesh wash all painted on. I might need to come back and do another quick wash, but we're going to actually try a little bit of that blue tone. Now the blue tone is specifically for the uniform, and I'm going to use that as a bit of some point washes, meaning I'm not going to just paint the entire figure. I'm just going to take my brush, take a little bit of the blue tone, and just kind of run it around the areas that would be shadowed. Now the zenithal priming did actually help with a lot of those shadows. It created a beautiful tonal shift, which is really awesome, but I wanted to go ahead and over accentuate a few of the folds in his pants and his jacket, give a little bit more detail. So I think applying a little bit of that blue tone in different areas in his creases and any of the jacket folds or pant folds really should help a lot. So we're going to go ahead and cue in that time lapse. We're going to finish off the blue tone on all of the Luftwaffe uniform blue. Then we're also going to grab the dark tone and we're going to come in on the coveralls and paint those up as well. Fingers crossed this works out. Well, I have to say that overall, for my very first set of figures, not too bad. They're not perfect, but I think they'll pass just fine. What we're going to do now is I wanted to go ahead and reintroduce some highlights. So we're going to go ahead and dry brush. Now I've taken some of my NATO black and I mixed it with a little bit of light gray. Now we're going to go ahead and just dry brush over the coveralls, give them some highlights, give them some definition, because we've got the nice dark, deep recesses, but we needed some sort of lighter highlights. And then hopefully that should help to tie the figure together. Not too much, just a little bit here. I don't want to over accentuate it, just want to add a little bit of interest. Now on the pilot as well, I've mixed up a lightened shade of that Luftwaffe uniform blue, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to dry brush over his legs, his pouches, and anything on, his actual uniform itself. I just took a little bit of the Vallejo white and I mixed it with the Luftwaffe blue color, just mixed it together, and I came up with a nice highlight. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to dry brush over the top of that. And you guys know how to dry brush. You get your brush, dip it in some paint, go into like a paper towel or something and get most of the paint off, and then just come back in and just drag the brush over top of all of the ridges and the high points. But that should give us a nice little bit of highlight. I'm also going to hit his hat as well, because his hat would be covered in the direct focus of the sun. So I'm going to put a lot of highlight on that. And after all of our washes and our highlighting and dry brushing, this is what we've come up with. These are our three figures. I got to tell you, I can see why people like painting figures, because it is actually quite fun, but it's hard. It is not easy, especially for someone like me who really only paints aircraft. One thing we do have to do though is now that our figures have kind of dried and we can handle them again, I want to go ahead and do a little bit of detail painting. Now on his life jacket, there are a couple of clasps right in the front, and the box top here shows those to be silver. So we're just going to briefly touch those tiny little buckles with some silver. Again, I'm going to wick most of that paint off so that we don't have a huge amount of paint. It doesn't flow everywhere. And then we'll move on to the buckle below that. And I think we should be looking pretty decent on the life jacket itself. I went ahead and overcoated that life jacket with the soft tone, and that actually really brought a lot of detail up, and I think it actually looked pretty decent. It's not as yellow as it was. That soft tone definitely brought it down. So awesome stuff. I love this whole set of washes. It's great, It's really helped me a lot. And I think it's a pretty easy way to go ahead and get a figure painted. A little bit I do know of figure painting now. Moving on to his hat, of course, we have to go ahead and paint up the insignias there. That's going to be super tough to do because those are really tiny. He also has a cord that goes from his left temple across the brim to his right temple. We have to go ahead and paint that also with silver. So I'm going to take this as carefully as I possibly can so I don't get paint everywhere, and I'm just going to touch the very tip of all of these raised details. I think that should hopefully be pretty simple to do. But of course, that's not all. The pilot also has a few buckles on his boots. Now there is one buckle here towards the side bottom of the boot, right there. Other side of the boot as well, and also up at the very top of the boot, we also have some additional buckles there. Let's go ahead and get the other side here. Again, just barely any pressure and hardly any paint. Just getting the tip of that done. And then of course, one more here. Also, there's 2 buttons on the front of each of these pouches that the box top shows as silver. So I'm going to again just barely grace the very tip of that brush against each of those raised details. There's 2 on each panel. And I think we'll be more or less done with the pilot, at least for right now. I might have to do some touch up a little bit later, but I think that's looking pretty decent. And after all of that, guys, we actually have 3 figures. I'm happy with them. I think everything has some added interest and some details, and they're not just stark figures. They've got depth and shadow and highlights, and I don't know how I did all this, but I just followed instructions. I talked to people that are well more experienced than I am, and I think I have a decent set of figures. So I'm actually very happy about this. Now there might be a few extra details here and there we might have to put on. Like I didn't put any eyebrows on these guys. I'm not sure if you'd even see eyebrows at 3 feet from these models. But again, we do have a few more things we could do, but I want to go ahead and get on that airplane. So I think what we're going to do is next episode, we're going to come on back. We're going to try to get on that airplane and start getting the cockpit at least built up and move forward with the actual aircraft. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining me. You guys know the drill. Get out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we will see you back here next episode of Ben Builds. Until then, take care, and we'll see you soon.